Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Famology podcast. We could not be more excited to be starting off this podcast for your families. We want this podcast to have a reach all over our nation, but in order for that to happen, we need your partnership. All that would look like for you is finding us on social media. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and anywhere that you watch or listen to your podcasts. Follow us, interact with us, comment on our post. We would love to get to know you better. If you have a question that you would like to submit for our podcast for my parents to answer, just go to our website at gofam.org and you can go to the contact me page there and submit your questions, or you can go to Facebook or Instagram and just private message us on there with your questions. On today's episode, we will be discussing some topics such as how do you establish individual calling in a home with multiple people? How do you know when you are supposed to marry someone? And how do I encourage open communication with my children? We're happy you're here. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Famology. This is our first episode where we're going to dive into your questions, and we're super excited to get started.
Yes, we are. But before that, I just have to tell you a little about our Tuesday this week. Tuesday was kind of a day. So, from my day began at 5 a.m. and we had realized that our studio idea for this podcast just wasn't going to work. And so we looked at each other and we're like, okay, what are we going to do? So
we initially set it up with our heads like right next to that Famology marker board.
Yeah.
And I said, it looked like we just got arrested and we were just getting our mugshots.
In a kindergarten classroom.
So you have these plans in your head and it just didn't quite connect.
No. So, but what that meant for me was that I needed to mud and tape this wall behind here because it was all just seamed. And so anyways, and you know, one of those things that when you learn how to do something, you kind of wish you could forget it because I have become the mudder taper in this family.
Last episode we talked about, who are John and Amy Clausen, and I did not put that on your list. My wife is a master.
Master's not the right word.
Okay, she's proficient. She's very, very good at taping and mudding sheetrock. Who knew? And so the problem with that is that you always get asked to do it because she's really good at it.
And it's kind of a solitary job. And honestly, nobody except my oldest son, he wants to learn how to do this. And I've kind of taught him. And so he now could help with these projects. But Johnny doesn't want anything to do with it. It's kind of like laundry. Like, I don't need to know,
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress. So we were going to go, we suddenly needed to get this done, but our week was already pre-scheduled. And anybody who's done sheetrocking, taping, any of that work knows that it requires a lot of incremental steps.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that brings me to 5 a.m. Tuesday morning. I needed to get another coat of mud on this wall or it wasn't going to get done in time. We wouldn't have been able to get it painted. And we needed to leave the house at 6:15 to get to our son Elijah's football scrimmage in, where was it?
Menominee, Wisconsin.
Menominee, Wisconsin, which is 3 hours from our house. And he had his first football scrimmage and we just wanted to see him do his thing. And it was fun. So we drove I got the mudding taping done. We got out of the house and we watched Elijah's scrimmage. But we needed to leave that scrimmage at 11 a.m., which meant we watched for about an hour and 15 minutes in Menominee, Wisconsin, left there at 11 a.m., quick stopped at a gas station to grab like gas station food. You know what I'm talking about? Like the beef jerkies, not super satisfying.
Right.
Rushed out the door to move our daughter Maggie into her senior year of college. Mm-hmm. And we had to be to her campus, like registration to get into the dorms where they hand you the keys ended at 1 o'clock. We had an hour and 45-minute drive. So clocking that from 11 till 1, we got there like 7 minutes before it's closed.
Yeah.
Got it done. Got Maggie all situated, all settled into her dorm. And then we had to leave there by 3 because our daughter Sadie had her first volleyball game as an 8th grader at 5 o'clock. And we had about a 2 hour and 15-minute drive home, which, yeah, we were a tiny bit late for Sadie's game, but we mostly made it. The only thing that didn't get done that day was eating.
The food.
We just never had time to eat.
No.
We got to the scrimmage. We got to her moved in. We got to the volleyball game. When we got home at 7 o'clock, we were famished and we ate really quick. And then we put our first coat of paint on this wall. That was our Tuesday, guys.
It's an adventure, honey, with you. Let me tell you, every day you never know what you're going to get.
I just felt like that was noteworthy.
I'm sure you guys can relate to life like that, especially if you have kids that are starting sports and different things.
Yeah.
It can be kind of hectic, and we're going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
Actually, the first question kind of ties into that just a little bit. So this question was submitted to us by Rebecca from Point Roberts, Washington. Wow. And she asks, how do you cultivate each individual call and purpose while establishing a home as a whole, and do they work together? That's the question. Go ahead and start, babe.
All right. Well, it was interesting as I was thinking about this question, because we have a lot of moving parts. There are 10 of us in our home. I mean, not anymore.
Right.
Let's just take a second. There's 4 of us in our home right now. Where are the Kleenex? We just have 2 kids at home now. We've got 2 in college and 4 married. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I digress. But there has been a lot of moving parts. And I feel like when I was thinking through this question of, wanting to create a culture in your home, but also there's a lot of people who have individual callings that are nestled in there. And I feel like one of the best things that we can do as mom and dads is navigate out loud our own call from the Lord, and allow our children front row seats to us following his voice, us saying yes to what he's called us to.
Yeah.
And allowing them to see that, because knowing what we're called to do and what we're passionate about is part of what we need to help bring forth in our kids. But instilling them the ability and desire to hear the Lord's voice and actually doing it, that's something that we can model and they can catch by just watching us live that way.
Yeah, I think the key word is passion, and that's something that we've really doubled down on in parenting, especially when you have a big family.
Yeah.
We've always made it a motto in our home that we chase passion, we don't chase activity.
Yeah.
And so we just shared you our day, and you could say, well, sounds like we're chasing activity. Yes, to a degree, but everything that we did that day actually were our children's passions. And we actually require them to be able to verbalize that to us. So it's not just that, Joey, my best friend, is doing it, that's why I want to do it. That's not usually good enough for us. We usually want to see or hear passion in their voice.
Yeah. Maggie
was our first. When our oldest 4 were being raised by us, I mean, it was I don't want to use the word zoo because that implies that it was kind of out of control.
Yeah.
But there was just a lot of things going around. So the idea of our older children's playing sports or being in choir or all these extracurricular activities, that would have been very difficult for us in that stage. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't have entertained it, but it turns out that it probably wouldn't have worked out for them.
I don't know if we could have entertained it because I was navigating nappers and I was the only driver in the house. Yeah. We're in a season now where we always have other drivers. Johnny works only nights, and so he's available in the evenings to help with some of that. My parents live right down the road from us now and can help with driving the kids to events. But back in the day when Jake, Emma, Ben were our oldest, it was me, and that was it. So
well, and I think that honestly, just looking back, I think Maggie was the first one that probably could have met that criteria of actually verbalizing her passion. To know Maggie is to know somebody who is very driven, very well-spoken, able to lay out the things that she's thinking, and she has a plan.
Yeah, she does.
And so when she came to us and said, I am passionate about volleyball, it actually was an understatement because she became very passionate about it, became very good at volleyball. And just put in a ton of hard work. And so she
Yeah.
backed it up with her actions as well. And so that was kind of easy for us. But I do remember sitting down, even with the younger children, and saying, this is going to change our life.
Yeah.
Now, you may say volleyball changing your life. It really does.
Yeah.
Anybody who has kids in sports know that it's not, your life isn't supposed to revolve around that. However, there's a lot of time commitment
Yeah.
to sports, and we can talk about that on another episode.
Yeah.
To a fault, I will say, to a fault.
Yeah.
However, she was able to explain that to us, but we sat down as a family knowing that it would be a family decision. Now, when I say family decision, I don't mean democracy.
Yeah.
Amy and I don't really believe that family is a democracy. We get to be in charge.
Yeah.
We're the parents and we get to parent them. However, it is going to require sacrifice from the other children. Now, I believe that the word sacrifice isn't a bad word. And I believe that it's something that is super important that our children actually learn. It's maybe a word that's fallen by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah.
But sacrifice, putting your time for the sake of somebody else. And so we wanted the other kids to hear that Maggie was passionate about this. And because she was, we were willing to go to her games, to cheer her on.
Yeah.
We're really loud.
Yeah.
The Clausen family is very, very loud.
To know us is to hear us.
And so when we say we cheered her on, you'd have to just be there to believe it. But it's true. A lot of screaming, yelling, and it's great. And we enjoyed it, and we enjoyed seeing her enjoy it. But then enter the next kids who follow in her footsteps, and now we're driving around
watching
the country,
football.
Going into other states, watching scrimmages in football, and coming back quickly for volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
We have a son that plays baseball. We enjoy sports. It's part of our context of family. It's part of our culture that we've created. We enjoy sports. We enjoy watching sports. But absolutely, yes, it can get out of control. It can be too much. It can be just activity.
Yeah.
And we just don't have a lot of value for that.
No. But I think in this question, I read it too, like, what about their individual callings?
Yes.
Because the things that they're passionate about and that they really enjoy, the Lord uses all of those things. But I don't think Maggie ever felt like she was going to be a professional volleyball player, and that this was going to be, although coaching maybe. So, the Lord uses all the things that we're passionate about. But what about like our calling as a family to family ministry? But we have kids that, are maybe called to missions, or one that's, called it, very, very gifted in singing and those kind of things. How do we foster opportunities inside the context of our home for that? And I love that you brought out the passion piece, because we do foster opportunities for those things even outside of sports, where our kids are extremely passionate. And if our kids have a heart bent towards missions, then we look in to pray with them and find opportunities for them to do those kind of things within our family unit. And because every single kiddo is different, and every one of them is unique. And which brings us back to really living out loud our own personal journeys of what the Lord's calling us to, and the things that he's made us passionate for. One of my passions is homeschooling. I love it. And so I want to bring excellence to the table in that. And so we're modeling all those things for our kids, just as much as like grumbling and complaining about the assignments, also model things for our kids that we wouldn't want to do. But I found this verse when I was thinking about this, and it's James 1:22, and it says, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only." And so that would be my desire for my kids, when the Lord's laying something on their heart, that they would come to us, share their passions, share their dreams. And then as a family, let's find action steps for what we can do to get behind those things and just feel the Lord's breath on it together. And I think that's super fun. One of the greatest delights of having teenagers is this piece, is the maturing of their own passions and dreams.
Yeah, drawing that out of them has been really one of the highlights for me, honestly, is just sitting down and saying, what sparks you? What are the things, what were you created for?
Right.
And those are just great conversations to have, because again, you can pick a vocation that's just an activity, or pick a vocation that just pays the bills.
Right.
But that's not what we're asking for our children. We want them to be passionate. So I took my son kayaking.
Our oldest.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
old was he? 13,
I
maybe.
think he was a little older than that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we're kayaking, and we have a 2-person kayak, and so I was sitting in the back, and he was sitting in the front, and the person in the front sets the cadence for the paddling.
Yeah.
And so as fast as they paddle, the person in the back has to paddle, or otherwise your paddles clank together. So you have to be coordinated in that. And so I was asking him about his life and what he is passionate about and the things that motivate him. And as he would get excited about talking about it, he'd begin to paddle faster.
Yeah.
And so I found myself like knowing what he was passionate about based on the speed of his paddling.
How tired you were.
And so I've used that as kind of a catchphrase, what makes you paddle faster?
Yeah.
And I think that's the question I would ask you to ask all of your children.
Yeah.
What makes you paddle faster? What are the things that excites you and motivates you?
Right.
So to answer the second question is, do they all work together? I think the answer is absolutely yes. I believe as a family, we never leave the context of family. And I don't care how old they are.
Yeah.
I believe it's a conversation that we can have together because we work together. And there will be some times when they're younger. Poor Silas going to his sister's volleyball games. You think he's going to the dentist or something. It's he doesn't always love it.
I'll asterisk it. It's the game before his sister's game
true.
that he has to sit through. That's the dentist part.
Yes.
Once Sadie's playing, he does okay.
And for whatever reason, volleyball teams have to warm up.
They warm up a lot
for 25 minutes, and it's like they're high school kids. They don't need that much warm up. And so I was trying to figure out how many hours of my life I have spent watching volleyball girls warm up. So it's a sacrifice for Silas to go to her games, but it's a sacrifice for her to go to his baseball games, and that's just what we do. But it's more than that. I think once you learn the passions in each other, it's the encouragement. I think our siblings, even now, are one of the greatest encouragements to each other.
Yeah.
And the things that they're dreaming over and doing. I'm getting emotional again. And that's super exciting to see.
Yeah.
And so once we know our passions and once we share them with each other, it's super great to cheer each other on. That's what family does. That's what it's for. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Good question.
Question number 2. How did you know your husband or wife was meant to be your spouse? And how did God show you? That is from Anel from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Go ahead, babe.
You get that one first. Go, baby, go.
Well, it's funny because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think men and women are a little different on this because, and I say that because of the Hallmark movies, that there's always a Hallmark movie or like this rom-com deal.
Right.
That the woman has some kind of list. Aren't those, those lists?
Yes.
Like the perfect man list.
Yes, right.
And so, he has to be this and this tall and, all these different attributes, and he's got to be funny, and he's got, all those. I'm not sure guys do that.
Really?
You know what I mean? Sort of that pro and con list.
Right. I'm glad you didn't make a pro and con list about me.
Well, I don't recommend it. I guess that's where I'm heading with this.
Right.
And so the way not to know if they're the right person is whether they check enough boxes on your list. You know what I mean? Now with that being said, there are other shows like House Hunters and Love It or List It, where they have a must-have list.
Oh God.
What are your must-haves?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So if you're going to build something, you're going to move, you're looking at a house, what are the things that are not negotiable?
Right.
I think that list is reasonable. And I would want my sons and daughters to have that list. What are the things that are not negotiable?
Right.
And that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think you're not looking for perfection. You're looking for somebody that's perfect for you. And I think that's the case. You're just below perfection. Like if there was
he's glazing me, as my teenagers say.
If there was a rating, like there's perfection and you're just under. So you're not perfect. Isn't that good? Isn't that good to know?
That is a relief.
However, you are perfect for me. And I've always known that after 30 years of marriage. That's always true.
And I feel like we should have a kissing break.
Well, it's not that kind of podcast.
Oh, gotcha.
So I think it's okay to have a must-have list. But so the question is, how do you know?
Yeah.
And I would say, well, the answer isn't going to be your brain. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not processing and finding somebody. I will say this before I pass it over to you, that I love the word no, and you know that about me. The word no is the Hebrew word yada. And
K-N-O-W. I'm going to spell it,
yes.
not
And
N-O.
so the question is, how do you know? How do you know they're the one?
Mhm.
Well, I think that I love the word no, and you should lean into that word because it's a word of deep intimacy. It's a spiritual word. It's a
Mhm.
connectivity word with the Lord, so that I believe things are knowable,
Yeah.
and call unto me, and I will answer you,
Yeah.
and I will tell you great and
I
unsearchable
love that
things that you
verse.
do not know.
I love that
And
verse.
so he's going to tell you things that you might not even know. And so you're saying, well, how do I know?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I think he can tell you, and you're going to know in your knower, which is more than your brain.
Yeah.
It's a place of intimacy. And so so through him and the desire from a father and how much he loves you,
Yeah.
you're going to know in your spirit.
Yeah. Good answer. That's a good answer. I was like very literal with this question when I went through it. So I was looking at it, how did I know?
Mhm.
And so the things that I knew, and I guess this goes along with what you said, because these were my must-haves.
Yeah.
It was a must-have for me that he loved the Lord more than he loves me. An absolute must-have. And then right underneath it was watching him interact with his mom and his siblings and his family. What his, his behind the scenes attitude, his when he's with them attitude, how he interacted. I paid attention to those things. And I will never forget. I think the moment that I fell in love with him might have been this. It was the first time I was over at your house, and we were just talking and getting to know each other downstairs. And Johnny's mom, who all the grandkids call Yogi, is it's Yogi Bear and Papa Bear. Yogi came into the room and she's like, do you have any ideas for, she was figuring out a costume for something, because that's what Clausens do. We wear costumes. And Yogi was just needing some help. And I remember that you dropped everything on that moment and you gave your mom your full attention and helped her solve this costume problem. That it wasn't like earth shattering. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like there was a crisis. It was
Yeah.
just, you love your mom, and how you walked that out was that you would be willing to set aside your time with your new girlfriend and go help your mom with this
That is
costume.
something. That is
I
something.
I
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
but it spoke loudly to me about how you treat people you love.
Hmm.
And I'm just saying that when I, am sitting there wondering if I'm going to be one of those people that you love,
Mhm.
that mattered to me a lot.
Yeah.
And I would say that you do that really well. And it's one of the things,
Hmm.
one of the first things that drew me to you was that piece, that
Yeah.
relational piece.
Well, my answer seemed a little bit more spiritual than yours, but I'm coming to that
Yeah.
because I think that you're going to hear this a lot, so just bear with me. But we are spirit, soul, and body.
Yeah.
That's what we are. And so when I talked about knowing in your spirit, that's where we start. We
Yeah.
start connecting to God and His Spirit, and He speaks to us. And then we have a soul and body, and they aren't bad.
Right.
They're just subject to our spirit. But that's the part, as my soul is my mind, will, and emotions, the way that I think, what I see, and then our body is the thing where you become tachycardic when you see this beautiful girl. I mean, there's a bodily response, and our pupils dilate and we get sweaty, and you know what I mean. And all of those things I think are also important. They aren't bad. It's just in alignment. And so I wrote down on my notes, like, pay attention to those things too,
Yeah.
because when the Lord gives you something and He puts it in your knower,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden there is a response where all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I see you with my
Yeah.
mind processes life with you. And and I love holding your hand and
Mhm.
kissing you on the lips and all the things that go along. And I call them the butterflies. I mean, the
Yeah.
butterflies are not a bad thing. And sometimes we get so deep into family ministry
Yeah.
and the spiritual side of things, which is comes first. But then guess who invented the butterflies?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's God's idea.
Yeah.
And so pay attention to those things. And so there should be a desire to spend every waking moment together.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. We have a daughter dating a young man right now, and they do spend every moment together. And that's actually healthy. That's
Yeah.
good. Obviously with boundaries
They
and all of
each
those
other.
things, which we'll talk about with other questions, boundaries and all those things in relationships. However, we should want to. And I'll just read right off my notes. I still want to spend every minute with my wife
Aw,
after 30 years. That's true.
it is.
It hasn't changed.
It is
So,
true.
See, I'm just an emotional mess. So,
No.
anyways, but that's still true.
Yeah.
It's still true because those are the butterflies. They're
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah.
Butterflies are still there, babe.
Mm.
So
Now you're making me cry.
so that's how you know. I mean, that's part of knowing is that it's fun.
Yeah.
So we had a daughter. I won't name any names. We talked about this. Who started seeing this young man, and Amy and I went to Indiana to meet him.
Well, now you gave it away.
Well, they don't know where our children live.
Okay.
Indiana doesn't necessarily. I mean, it'll mean something to the people that know us closely, but not other people.
Okay. Just checking.
And it was funny because great guy, and she was super excited for us to meet him, and so we just spent some time together and played cards and all
Yeah.
those kind of things, and so funny. So Amy and I get back in the car. We're driving back home after meeting him, and we were both like really kind of quiet. Like you would think, like we're so happy for this daughter of ours. And so then finally one of us were like, so what did you think? and we were both kind of quiet because we just didn't feel it. Like as parents, like, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I mean, he was fine. It was that kind of thing. He was fine.
Our daughter is like, oh!
Yeah.
And it was like, oh.
And so interestingly, as their relationship progressed,
It didn't progress long.
well, it didn't, and it wasn't fun.
No.
And we just kept telling her, like, are you having fun? Like, it's supposed to be great.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when you fall in love and then
Yeah.
it's supposed to be great.
Yes, it is.
And we just weren't sensing that either. And so needless to say, that drifted away, which it should have, and other relationships came in, which they should have.
Yeah, and I will never forget the first week she started dating her now husband. And she called me and she's like, Mom, I am having so much fun. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that is what I wanted to hear.
I think she said she was sore from laughing. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
Yeah.
That's the part of it.
Yeah.
And so to answer this person's question, because we know the heart in it, and they're probably looking and searching and
Yeah.
maybe even in a relationship, but a little unsure.
Yeah.
Then, I would listen to those things. And
Yeah.
if it isn't fun, if it feels like it's heavy lifting,
Yeah.
it might not even be a no, but it might be a not yet.
Yeah.
And so if that's you, and that was your question, or you relate to this question, and you're in a relationship and you're
Yeah.
feeling like, yeah, I'm wrestling. It's,
Yeah.
it seems like there's more conflict than enjoyment.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's time to just sort of reevaluate those things. It's a broad brushstroke statement.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do have to work through things. So I'm saying there's not that, but pay attention to the butterflies and then ask the question, is this the rest of my life kind of
Yeah.
thing? Can I imagine